Hello, and welcome back to Alice Talks Football, and welcome back to another live short Manchester United news, takeover news, transfer news, general news update show. Rumours coming in of a Barcelona swap deal, including Bruno and a deal for Frankie de Jong. Bruno, there's been a lot of speculation about his future. Manchester United, we know, love de Jong and are interested in de Jong. I'm going to jump right off it and think Bruno is staying here next season. I think that Barcelona media is pushing this news for clicks, and never trust any Barcelona transfer links. Barcelona transfer news is worse than Man United transfer news when it comes to rumours, and we know that. But we will talk about those stories in more detail because there is some speculation about Bruno Fernandes leaving. We're going to talk about other news that suggested Bruno could leave and where that's likely come from, aka an interview quote that's basically been misquoted. We've got information on Thomas Tuchel and how Jim Ratcliffe feels about Thomas Tuchel and what Ratcliffe has reportedly said about Thomas Tuchel behind the scenes. We're going to go through Manchester United's transfer list in terms of reliability, who's the most likely, some interesting names on United's transfer list that you may have not heard of. Interestingly, we're going to get into a little bit of Ten Hag's interview with Gary Neville, some interesting things Ten Hag said, like we don't expect that this happens, and Ten Hag spoke about what him and Wilcox and INEOS have spoken about, the plan going forward. He's revealed how injuries have impacted him, he's revealed transfer targets he didn't get, and more. So we're going to dive into all the news. Other stories unrelated to United is that Girona have been accused of financial irregularities, and you'll never guess who owns Girona. Oh, the same owners as Manchester City. Shock. But everybody, please do hit that like button. Please do go ahead and subscribe down below if you're new. It really helps out the channel, and we're going to get right into the stories as well. It's a bit of a random time to go live, but I have a very, very busy day. And I want to start off by something that's very random. It's very, very random, and it's not totally news related, but it just links with something that I was speaking about the other day. And this is on Diogo Dalot. So let's dive into this story here. Now, Christian Eriksen said on Diogo Dalot that he trains the best at United. And this is unrelated to what we're going to talk about in today's show, but I remember speaking to someone, I remember outlets coming out saying that Diogo Dalot is one of the hardest working players at United. He trains extremely hard, he gives 100%, and that's why he's recently become one of Ten Hag's favourites in the sense of he works incredibly hard in training. He's becoming a leader, speaks multiple languages, communicates well with everyone in the Manchester United backline, and it's really sort of matured into a top player. Obviously, Dalot, I remember I wasn't 100% sure on him at the start of the season, but I think in terms of growth development, Dalot is probably the most improved player of the season, someone that I've been incredibly impressed by, and lots of reports, information, and stories coming out about how Dalot is so hardworking and training, really, puts the effort in. Apparently, Malacia did as well pre-injury. Willy Cambuala really works hard in training, and how they are examples to the rest of the squad. And when you've got someone like Eriksen, that's as experienced as he is, coming out and praising obviously Diogo Dalot, it obviously says a lot as well. So I thought I'd quickly cover that, start on a positive note in the live stream praising Dalot. But I want to jump into the Thomas Tuchel news, and I'm kind of bored about Tuchel this, Ten Hag this, Man United this, Man United that. I'm actually just so bored of rumours and speculation, so I will get this out of the way because we've been talking about Tuchel and Ten Hag almost every single day. I'm going crazy. It was like Frankie de Jong 2 summers ago. It was like Amrabat last summer. I feel like sometimes you talk, it was like the takeover for the last year. Sometimes at Man United you talk about something for so long that you actually feel yourself going crazy. Like, are we having another conversation about this? But this is the Tuchel news. It was said that Erik Ten Hag is being discussed at Bayern. There are reports coming out that Erik Ten Hag is being discussed over a potential move to Bayern Munich. Bayern Munich got rejected by Ralf Rangnick. Bayern Munich got rejected by Xabi Alonso. Bayern Munich got rejected by Amorim. Bayern Munich have basically been rejected by everybody, that their fans have started a petition to not sack Thomas Tuchel and to bring Tuchel back. Bayern Munich are now trying to convince Thomas Tuchel to stay when they basically wanted to get rid of him. Thomas Tuchel obviously doesn't want to stay because he's hearing news of Man United and he would pick Manchester United over Bayern Munich. And now Ten Hag is now number one for the Bayern job because Bayern have a feeling that they're not going to be able to keep Tuchel because Tuchel wants a challenge in the Premier League. And there are inside sources saying that Tuchel believes he will be Manchester United manager come July, which is again meaning there's no way he's staying at Bayern despite sort of the change in mind of those at Bayern. So now Bayern think, well, if Thomas Tuchel's so confident he's going to be Man United manager, Ten Hag's going to be available, and all of a sudden Ten Hag is sort of becoming this top choice for Bayern Munich as well. Tuchel's agent busting for him to get a job, says David Shaw, and you're not wrong with that. And I do think, all these stories about Tuchel this, all these stories about Tuchel that, every single day we're getting hundreds and hundreds of stories Tuchel this, Tuchel that, Tuchel this, Tuchel that. It does feel like it's just coming from Tuchel's agent, because half of these stories are saying Tuchel wants the Premier League, Tuchel's ready for the Man United job, Tuchel's heart set on the Man United job, Tuchel wants this, Tuchel want that, Tuchel's interested in the Manchester United job, he wants it. You know, so many sources coming out like that it feels like a brief from Tuchel's agent to just say, let INEOS know I'm ready, I want Man United, let INEOS know. It does feel like that. It was also said from CF Bayern, which is Christian Falk, that Sir Jim Ratcliffe has a lot of respect for Thomas Tuchel, and Tuchel is still interested in becoming Manchester United manager. This could be a big topic if Erik Ten Hag is sacked and as soon as Bayern Munich's involvement in the Champions League ends. So, if Ten Hag is sacked, I think Tuchel is Man United's number one option, because De Zerbi will be expensive. Potter, they're not totally convinced on, and Potter could return to Ajax. I don't think anything's going to happen with Tuchel, and any decision will happen on Ten Hag until end of the month. I think INEOS maybe secretly have plans to replace Ten Hag with Thomas Tuchel, but they know Tuchel's got the Champions League to work on. They know that Ten Hag's got the FA Cup to work on. They're keeping it quiet. They're keeping it hush-hush. Maybe they know of Tuchel's interest and they've got confirmation that Tuchel will accept the job. So when end of the season comes and they decide whether they're going to sack Ten Hag or not, they will then know, will Tuchel take the job if we sack Ten Hag? They found out Tuchel will at the end of the season, when they communicate with him post-Champions League, calm, cool, we're bringing Tuchel, we're sack Ten Hag then. That is what INEOS may do. I think INEOS probably know what they're going to do. They've probably made a decision, but they're not going to wait. They're not going to say anything until the end of the season, like Man United did with Van Gaal, and they're probably having a few secret talks with Tuchel's agents here and there, potentially, but I think they're leaving the manager's decision to the end of the season. I think INEOS know if they'll keep Ten Hag or not. I just don't think INEOS are going to do anything to the end of the season, and they're going to plan for next season with Ten Hag, because they're not going to tell him he's sacked before the last few games of the season, because then that just adds speculation over who the next manager will be, and they probably want to respect elements of what Tuchel is doing right now. We've got 200 people in the chat and we're on 40 likes. Can we hit 100 likes, guys? And if everybody watching hits that like button, it'd be really, really appreciated as well. He's not going anywhere all waffle. I wouldn't be surprised if Ten Hag stays. I've said it before and I'll say it again. I would not be totally surprised if Erik Ten Hag does stay at Manchester United next season. I think you have to remember Wilcox and INEOS, they're very sympathetic of what Ten Hag's been through, injury-wise, what Ten Hag had to deal with this season. They know the environment at United is the problem, and their priority isn't replacing Ten Hag. Their priority is changing the environment at Manchester United, which could definitely buy Ten Hag some time and definitely leniency with INEOS. Well, I feel like it's Tuchel or Ten Hag, and it's 60% Tuchel, 40% Ten Hag. I think that actually no one really knows, and there's definitely a lot of reasons why INEOS may keep Ten Hag and stick with Ten Hag. Now, before I get into the big transfer list, I just want to debrief this sort of Bruno Fernandes nonsense going about. Barcelona media is the worst of the worst of the worst. Like, Barcelona media is the worst, and they're coming out saying that Barcelona have registered their interest in Bruno Fernandes, which doesn't surprise me. Barca wanted to sign Bruno, he picked us over them. Xavi would welcome him, and his first contacts have been made to find out the total cost of bringing him to Barcelona. Man United would be willing to include Fernandes in a deal for De Jong. Manchester United are not willing to include Bruno Fernandes in a deal for De Jong. I am 99% sure, confident of that, because one, people won't believe me when I say this. People will think this is ridiculous, but Bruno Fernandes is worth more than Frankie De Jong on the current market. Bruno Fernandes is worth more than Frankie De Jong. Frankie De Jong is a 60, 70 million midfielder. Bruno Fernandes is a 100 million player. Bruno Fernandes' availability. Bruno Fernandes is a lot better than what he's showing at United, because he's being dragged down by his teammates. For me, Frankie De Jong would love him at United, but Frankie De Jong is on 600 grand a week. He does not want to come to United. Why will we trade Bruno in, who's on 4 times less the wages than Frankie De Jong, that gives everything for United, that's available every game, that loves Manchester United? Why would we trade Bruno in and give Barcelona money to take Frankie De Jong off their hands, who they're desperate to sell because of his ridiculous wages? It makes no sense. I'd be all over us signing Frankie De Jong, but you know what? I'm not bothered anymore, because we've got Kobbie Mainoo coming through and we need to replace Casemiro. De Jong, Kobbie Mainoo, Bruno isn't the most balanced midfield three. We've brought him out. We've got Kobbie Mainoo coming through. The next midfielder needs to be a 6. We need a Declan Rice, Rodri-esque player. Frankie De Jong would be great, but we need a Tchouaméni, Declan Rice-esque player, Rodri-esque player in that DM role. Someone that can play 6, someone that can play 8, someone that's physical. That is not Frankie De Jong. I don't want to give them Bruno Fernandes and be giving Frankie De Jong, who doesn't want to be a 600k a week, and not sign the profile of midfielder we need. For me, it doesn't make sense. I see so many Man United fans celebrating this, saying, let's get rid of Bruno and trade him in for De Jong. Let's get rid of Bruno, trade him in for De Jong. I think that United would be silly to do that. I really do. If Frankie De Jong was on low wages, he was desperate to come to Manchester United, and Barcelona offered us money plus De Jong for Bruno, I'd think about maybe accepting it. but we ain't giving them money plus Bruno for De Jong, because in my opinion, Bruno Fernandes is worth a lot more than Frankie De Jong, and I think this is BS Barcelona news. I really do. I really, really do as well. Bruno probably going to lift the Euro 24 trophy and his value will go up. I do think Portugal could win the Euros. Portugal got some brilliant players as well. I'm tired of all these speculations of who our next manager will be. To be honest, whatever happens, happens exactly. I think for me, it's Ten Hag or Tuchel, and I think that's what it looks like. But you never know. You never know. Maybe INEOS pull off a madness and Pep Guardiola walks out of Man City, goes and sticks his fingers up to Manchester 115 and says, "I want to go to the real club in Manchester. I want to go to the club in Manchester that can sell their stadium. I want to go to the club in Manchester that doesn't end in 115. I want to go to the club in Manchester that Julia Roberts visits," and maybe Pep does the all unthinkable miracle. Never going to happen. But I have to say, I don't want Ten Hag to be sacked. But if Pep Guardiola wants the Manchester United job, I have a few different opinions about that. I'll tell you that for a fact as well. Frankie is on 600k a week. He's actually on like £620,000 a week and over 700,000 euros a week. But obviously, a lot of those wages are deferred because Barca can't pay that because it's ridiculous. Barcelona's wage bill makes Manchester United's wage bill look normal, look like it makes sense. It's ridiculous as well. A reason you can tell Bruno to Barca is horse shite is that it's a player swap rumour. Player swap rumours are always horse shite, just making up two stories when they're worried one isn't enough. I agree with that. We have also been linked with Victor Roque's entourage regarding his situation. Barcelona willing to send him on loan due to possibility of not being able to register him for his development. So, I mean, that could be one to keep an eye on. It's a bit rogue, but whenever Man United are linked to a Barcelona player, I honestly, in my head, just think, what a load of rubbish. Ignore it. And Ten Hag did an interview and he said that he's fed up of Manchester United being linked to 200 players. Like, he is absolutely fed up of Man United being linked to 200 players. And you know what? We are linked to so many players. I saw this quote from Erik Ten Hag, and he said this here. He said on the squad overhaul, it's a joke. Every window, 200 players get an interest from Man United. We did some research, and every summer we sell our players. But he's absolutely right, and that had me thinking. With Man United linked to around 200 players, what are actually the credibilities in these links? What are the leaks? What are the information coming out on our transfer target? And what is the credibility on these links? So I made this little list. So I'm not going to go through the whole list. But Elise Todibo Branthwaite, we know that United are really interested in potentially these deals. Todibo is someone we really like. He's our second choice after Branthwaite, but Branthwaite is quite expensive, which may mean we pursue Todibo. Todibo wants the Premier League move. Branthwaite, Todibo and Elise, we all know will be open to a Manchester United move. We all know that United rate them highly. We all know that INEOS are definitely having some contact there. INEOS have actually had contact with Elise Todibo and Branthwaite's agents, so I've put them in the three ones that are most likely to happen if I had to put my money on it. But I think Branthwaite depends on fee. Other players that United generally have an interest in is Human. Human to United, I've heard some things behind the scenes actually, and I'm going to do an exclusive transfer video, so do subscribe for that. But I've heard some interesting information on Human behind the scenes. And Man United's plans to pursue the player. Apparently, he's one that Man United are really, really interested in, really, really watching and view him as more affordable than Amadou Onana. I've heard some interesting stuff from Human. And Salima is another one that United are looking at. Potentially, look, if we buy Todibo, we could also buy him and loan him to Nice in part of a deal for Todibo. We've also been looking at Youssouf Fofana of Monaco. Now, remember, Fabrizio Romano confirmed in the summer that United had inquired and actually sent a loan proposal to sign Fofana of Monaco. Fofana's got 1 year left on his contract, and it's been confirmed that he will be available for £25 million. And United, Fabrizio Romano confirmed this approach to sign him last summer, and United are in for Fofana this summer. They also like Amadou Onana and João Gomez in that midfield position, but United have actually submitted an offer for Fofana in the past. Another player we almost signed in the past was Benjamin Sesko, but because of the RB Leipzig, RB Salzburg's connections, he obviously went to RB Leipzig. Benjamin Sesko is averaging a goal a game at the moment. These last couple of games, he's been ridiculously good, and when he's got a 42 million release clause and he's so good at his age, and we know that Man United wanted him 2 years ago, that again is a deal that could genuinely happen. So these top signings are ones that can happen. Kieran Dewsbury-Hall is of genuine interest to United, and Kieran Dewsbury-Hall dreams of the move. Bremer, Antonio Silva, Gay, Frimpong, Tapsoba, João Neves have all been linked to United by reliable journalists and watched by United. Faye, who's a young defender at Barcelona, United have been looking at. Nunes, who's a young player in South America, United have been looking at. Girassi, obviously, we've looked at as well because cheap striker deal. Thuram, midfielder at Nice, we've looked at, 1 year left on his contract. Diallo, who's at Real Betis, a young winger that can play across the front line. Manchester United are thinking of potentially bringing in someone young that can play across the front line in terms to develop them. Bakayoko of PSV, we've looked at. Bobry of Ajax, we've looked at, of course. Ajax links in United. And the next 3 names, Miguel, Kerkeres, Nets, are also the left backs that United have been linked to. We know from Fabrizio Romano that Man United will sign a left back. Any truth in Tosin, centre back from Fulham? Tosin, centre back from Fulham, I'd probably put in this category here. I completely forgot to include him in this video, but he is rumoured to be going to Newcastle. Otherwise, he would be in this category here. There's a couple players we've been linked to, but I call them less credible. Lukimi, Palacios, Weaver, Talis, Andre Scalvani. These are sort of players we've been linked to. Xerxes, Tell, Nico Williams. Like some of we've been linked to them by semi-reliable sources, but like these players, we've had genuinely good sources link us to them continually. These are players we've been continually linked to. These are players we've been occasionally linked to, like Tell, Xerxes, Williams, Lukami, who are obviously people I bring in, Sule, Pedro Neto as well. Ederson is the midfielder at Atalanta, De Ligt, Kimmich, Lenny Euros, we've been linked to a lot more than everyone else here, but I just said because he's Madrid bound, I put him in this category. Subamendi, Tony, Ferguson, Doniel Marlem, Rabiot, Eze. These are also players that United have sort of kept an eye on and been linked by semi-reliable sources. Big up everybody in the chat as well. Over 340 watching, so please do hit that like button if you haven't already. Tosin is class, by the way, people not familiar with this game. I think when you need 2 centre-backs, bringing in Tosin on a free along with another big centre-back would be brilliant as well. So these are just a list of names of players that I don't think United will go through, but we've been linked to a lot of these players here. This is a young player from some South America as well. We've also been linked to these players: Chokerez, De Jong, Nuri, probably because of price. Apparently, United won't spend more than 25 million on a left back, and that was said by Romano. Coop Miners, I think we just linked to him because he's Dutch and we liked him in the past. I can't see us getting Barella, Ostenhem, Wirtz, Musiala, De Jong, Chokerez, or Nuri. Coop Miners and Almada isn't very reliable sources, but these are just a list of some of the names that have been linked to Manchester United ahead of the summer. Like, it's actually crazy how I've missed out Tosin, and I've missed out a lot of names, by the way. But like, this is just a list of players that United have been looking at where I've tried to rank them in terms of credibility. David says, I'm convinced in Weaver. I really like Weaver. I'd really like to see Mats Weaver at Manchester United. I think he's such a good player. I actually prefer him to Amadou Onana, but with the Feyenoord manager going to Liverpool, I almost feel like he's Liverpool bound now because they need a DM as well because Endo's getting on a bit. Chokerez would be class, he would be, but I think because of the amount of goals he's scoring, you're looking at 70 million. Subamende, you know what? I'm surprised we're not linked to Subamende more. I really, really like him. João Neves, it depends on price, but United are definitely big fans of João Neves and Antonio Silva, but Benfica know how to get a lot of money for their players. Look how much money they got for like João Felix as well. Most teams need 2 to 3 players. We need 8. And I think the thing with Manchester United is you look through this list, United needs 7 or 8 signings. So let's say we get Elise, that's 50 million, and we get Todibo, that's 40 million. That takes you to about 90 million. Let's say we get Fofana, who's 25 million. That takes you to 115 million. Sesko's 40 million release clause. That takes you to about 155 million there. So you've got 155 million. You've got Sesko, Fofana, Elise, Todibo, that's 4 signings. You also need another midfielder as well. So, you know, you also got Lukami. So that probably takes it to 170, 180 million there. You look at maybe left back here, someone that's going to be a bit cheaper, like Nets, 20 million. That already is taking you to 200 million, and that is 6 signings. And then arguably we maybe need another midfielder where you could potentially look at someone like a Human here or João Gomez as well. And you know, that's still, you know, that's good options, but that's still going to be over 200 million. And while United have 150 million net spend and we can easily raise 100 million in sales, and that is doable, it's Man United. It's not FIFA. Everything's sort of easier said than done. Human is one. I'm going to do an exclusive transfer video, but I have a source. And I've got some interesting info on Human. That's why he's at the top of players we could sign. I've tried to put this in an order of actually how strong the credibility is to a lot of these players and the info we're hearing as well. But obviously these are people on United's list. Sesko and Lise will be a great mistake for Man United. I don't think it'll be a great mistake, but I do think there's maybe that lack of experience in the front line, I guess. But I think Sesko's a monster, and I think Elise is a really Really talented player as well. Bremer, Sudamende, Matsui Elise, free fullback. And this is why I like tossing a Fulham, because then you can throw in another centre back on a free as well. Although he is demanding over 100k wages. 5 players we have to get in. For me, we need about 7-8 signings, but we have to get 5. 5 good signings, 2 defenders, a left back, a midfielder, a right winger striker. So that's 6 signings. Can't count. That's the most important. The most important player for me is DM. Someone that's going to work with Bruno Fernandes and Kobbie Mainoo in the midfield. That is the most, for me, getting that DM is the most important as well. Big up everybody, 18 likes away from 100 likes, nearly 400 people watching. So please do go ahead and hit the like button, or we already have hit 100 likes. Big up everybody in the chat there as well. Feels like a City signing. Is Branthwaite credible, or is it because he's English? No, Branthwaite, I know from inside info and reliable journalists, is Man United really like Branthwaite. Man United really, really like and really, really rate Jared Branthwaite. They won't overspend for him. If Jared Branthwaite is available for under 60 million, I think United go for him. And depending on what Branthwaite wants to do, he could end up at United. Branthwaite might say, I don't want to go to United. I want to go to Newcastle. I want to go to Liverpool. And he may reject United. But if he's available for under 60 million or less, United will go for him. And it just depends if Branthwaite wants Manchester United or not, in all honesty there as well. Bremer, Subamende, Matsui Elise, Frimpong, 2 free signings, Bosch. I mean, look, there's a lot of good options there. I mean, I said the other day, these are just a list of players that we've been linked to. There's lots of good options there that United can potentially sign. But listen, people, I've got a few other interesting stories that I do want to get back into. I do want to get back into the news. I do want to get back into the slides as well. But I did think that was a bit of an interesting tweet of mine that I thought could provide some context. But we do have news about Mason Greenwood. And one thing I'm not looking forward to this summer is the whole Mason Greenwood debate on Twitter. I cannot be bothered with it. Every summer, last summer, because there was no clarity on Greenwood, it was full of speculation, it was full of people falling out on Twitter. I feel like it's going to be like that again this summer, where everyone's going to be falling out over what to do with Greenwood. Man United need to basically say right away what they're doing with Greenwood and get it done. I cannot be bothered for he might be coming back, he might not. Oh no, this could happen, that could happen with Greenwood. Greenwood's, because pre-season will come around, Euros will come around. Man United need to say, are we going to bring Greenwood back to training when his loan's over? Is he going to be suspended from training and still a Man United player? Is he going to find a club before pre-season? Like, this is going to cause mass speculation. Now, one thing is there are teams interested in Greenwood. While Greenwood's agent and the Sun has been putting out a lot of false information on Greenwood, hyping him up and pretending there's interest from Barcelona, which isn't true. There is genuine interest from Atletico Madrid and Juventus and a couple other smaller clubs in Greenwood. Obviously, Getafe would love to keep Greenwood, but they cannot afford his wages. And they cannot afford to pay him in. United are looking for 30 to 40 million for Greenwood. And why United will want to sell Greenwood? With PSR and all the financial regulations, pure profit. Academy player, pure profit. They'll be looking at Greenwood. Can we get a 35, 40 million pure profit there for Mason Greenwood? Getafe, if they had the money, they'd pay it. He's actually been nominated for La Liga's team of the season. So I think Man United will be looked to selling him. Go United, Erik Ten Hag in. For me, you know what? I'd love Erik Ten Hag to stay at United and succeed. I understand if INEOS do bring in a new manager. INEOS want to completely change everything. They've sacked the whole board. They're getting rid of almost everything at United. INEOS want to completely change that club and do it their way. I understand if they sack Ten Hag because this season's been really bad. Tactically, it's been bad, but we have had injuries, so it's not ultimately Ten Hag's fault. But I do understand if INEOS sack Ten Hag. But personally, I've had the stance of I want Ten Hag to succeed. I believe there's a good manager in Ten Hag with the right environment and the right recruitment. I think Ten Hag can succeed. I watched how good he was at Ajax. I'd like Ten Hag to stay and be successful at United, which brings me into wanting to talk a little bit about Ten Hag's recent interview, guys, as well. Someone says mentality, fresh culture players, how you want Man United to be put in. Exactly. I want basically a big overhaul, loads of players out, new players in with the right mentality. Start of the show, we're talking about Dalot's mentality, Bruno's work rate to play with a broken wrist. I want players with the mentality of Bruno Fernandes and Diogo Dalot. I want players that give everything and don't stop running like Garnacho. I don't want players like Sancho that refuse to play for 4 months. I don't want players that aren't committed to this club. We need to find players with the right attitudes. And I tell you a player I like, and not that I want him at United, United. But Anthony Gordon, I watched this documentary on Newcastle and Dan Ashworth. Dan Ashworth did a big background check on Anthony Gordon, his personality, and he's probably been Newcastle's player of the season up there with Isak and Bruno Guimaraes this season. He's been probably Newcastle's most consistent player. Every goal Newcastle scored, Gordon's involved, but he is one of the hardest working wingers that wants to get better, that always wants to make something happen. United need players with that Anthony Gordon type mindset and personality. That's how I describe it. That's what we need to look for in players. Cultural reset is so important. Scott gives enough but isn't good enough. Yeah, Scott McTominay, personality, mentality, everything you want, perfect. Ability, he's all right as a super sub, but he's not good enough to start, and he's had enough chances. Completely agree with that as well. Alice, who will play Monday if Bruno's injured? Maybe Mount. He'll probably play Eriksen over Mount. Do you know what? Look, I know Mount is coming back from an injury, this and that, but I will say this. One thing I can't get my head round is you've signed Mount and you've signed Amrabat. Amrabat obviously is going to go, but you're now playing Eriksen and McTominay, who you wanted to get rid of McTominay in the summer, and Eriksen will go this summer, over Mount and Amrabat that you wanted to bring in and be part of your plans. Like, Mason Mount is the future, McTominay and Eriksen aren't. Why are McTominay and Eriksen always playing over Mount? I get that Mount, you have to blend him back from injury, but Mount's been back long enough now. Well, obviously, you got injured again, where I think surely Mount should start. Now, I want to talk about Ten Hag. I want to talk about his interview and obviously everything that went down with Gary Neville. And I thought this was a good interview. No Carragher there trying to wind Ten Hag up. And, you know, Carragher's got a bit of a Ten Hag agenda. I thought this was a very, very good interview with Gary Neville. And Gary Neville's doing an interview with Onana as well, which I can't wait to listen to, because I think Onana gets way too much stick, if I'm going to be honest with you. I think Andre Onana is a lot better than he gets credit for. But let's dive into this story here. So here are just some highlights from the Ten Hag interview. Big up Diego, big up everybody in the chat as well. Alice, I read that one. Big up everybody in the chat as well. Sell Greenwood, sell Sancho, sell Rashford, buy Nico Williams, Sesso and Weaver. I think if we sold Greenwood, Sancho and Rashford, we definitely need to buy two wingers. Maybe Sule of Juventus would be a good one. Right. So, what did Ten Hag say in his interview with Gary Neville? He spoke about missing out on Kane. He spoke about missing out on De Jong and having a midfield of De Jong and Casemiro. He spoke, obviously, about not having Luke Shaw and Martinez this season, missing his best centre-back from last season, which was Leacher. He spoke about how he's had to have 30 defensive combinations of 47 games, 31 separate injuries, which he's found a big struggle. And he said that he's only been able to play his strongest 11 at United once, and that was that game versus Wolves away from home, which that first half versus Wolves away from home, went to see that game live. Best I've seen United play all season, that 45 minutes. And I've got to watch it live, and I've got to watch Kobe Mainoo win it live. What a game. I'm so happy I went to see that game, because it was free ticket as well. But enough about me. These are some of the things that Ten Hag mentioned in his interview. He spoke about recruitment. Obviously, Højlund's a talent, but, you know, with Harry Kane, you get 30 goals. Ten Hag made that very, very clear. He spoke about, obviously, not getting De Jong and all of that. But I wanted to get into these quotes from Ten Hag's interview that I found particularly interesting. Ten Hag said this year we wanted to make the next step. This was his plan. We brought in a goalkeeper who can play out from the back, which was Andre Onana, which they did in pre-season. Then Leacher and Luke Shaw got injured, and Andre Onana's now kicking it long because we can't build up. Which I always have questions marks about. Ten Hag isn't playing how he wants to play next season. You can tell that because you wouldn't bring Andre Onana in to kick the ball long. He said we brought in a dynamic midfielder in Mason Mount, and Mason Mount was there to do the pressing, to do the work off the ball, which Eriksen and Casemiro don't have the legs to do, who has been injured all season. Although when he is fit, Ten Hag doesn't play him. And a goal scorer in Højlund that's young and needs time. And Ten Hag should add, needs some bloody service to the end of that as well. So you've got Mount, you've got Højlund, you've got Onana. For me, I still think they're three good signings. I still think the Højlund, Mount and Onana will play a part in our future. And I actually think they will be good signings for United. But they've been injured. One's young. One's been injured all season. Obviously, the other one's a goalkeeper. And because we've had injuries elsewhere, it also means we want to play this certain way. We've brought in Mount, Højlund and Onana to play this way. Now the new players we brought in to play this way can't play that way because we've had injuries and we have to adapt. We brought in Anthony because Ten Hag wanted to play the style of football he played at Ajax, and Anthony suits that. Anthony's been bad, and this is not me making an excuse for Anthony, but had we played the football that Ten Hag wanted to play, and had we actually had the players to play the football Ten Hag wanted to play, I think Anthony would be in a lot better position than he is now and be putting in a lot better performances. That doesn't mean he's good enough for United. I don't think he is. But my sympathy with Anthony is you brought a player that relies on runners, and he's got no runners around him. You buy past first winger that relies on his relationship with his teammates. You haven't built that United. Obviously, Premier League's harder than Eredivisie. There's a number of factors, and Anthony should be doing better because at the end of the day, there's no excuse for how poor his performances are. but there's almost that sympathy there with Anthony. And Ten Hag was asked about, the shots he's conceding. Would he ever consider maybe playing a little bit more defensively at Manchester United? And Ten Hag said, we thought about this, but one of my objectives here was to bring in a proactive way of play. I don't think we're necessarily playing proactive. I think Ten Hag's problem is he's trying to play attacking football, but we don't have the players to play attacking football because we can't keep the ball, because we don't have the players in possession, and because we're structurally so bad out of possession, we don't have players able to cover the ground needed out of possession. When we give away the ball, we defensively look so poor. And Ten Hag continues to say, defensively we're conceding a lot of shots because we've not played the same back four, and massively tactically having those defensive injuries, 30 back fours in 47 games. You have to give Ten Hag elements of sympathy there for sure, but I do think a lot of the problems come through tactics in midfield, which is leaving the defence exposed, which is obviously Ten Hag's fault. And he said last season we had a consistent back four, we did the same, and we had the most clean sheets in the Premier League. So when everyone is fit, they can deliver the way we want to defend, but also has something to do with possession. And I think Ten Hag makes a point in the sense of when Leacher and Varane were fit, he was obviously playing a lot better. Our best time was when Leacher and Varane were the two centre-backs. And when they got injured the back end of last season, we got a lot worse as well. One sec. I just need to reply to this. Sorry about that. Cool. Okay. That was an important message. But I think, Ten Hag has a point. When Leacher and Varane were fit, that was the best we were. And when they got injured, our season went down. And I think tactically, Ten Hag's got things wrong, and he can't completely rely on injuries as an excuse, because we've seen Arsenal hit with injuries, Liverpool hit with injuries, Chelsea hit with injuries, Newcastle hit with injuries, Brighton hit with injuries. And sometimes we played an injury-ridden Brentford side, and they played a lot better than us. And I think tactically, Ten Hag has got a lot wrong. But I also have that element of sympathy for Ten Hag, because I think, you look when he did have his best back, how much better it was. We brought Andre Onana to play out from the back. We brought Andre Onana and build up. We're now building up really badly because Andre Onana's having to go long because we don't have Luke Shaw, we don't have Martinez. Like, not having a left back and not having that left-footed dynamic in the defence has obviously impacted Ten Hag. For sure, Ten Hag's got a lot wrong, and I don't think I think there are things that he needs to improve on: stubbornness, substitutions, tactically he could adapt a bit more. I also think, actually, when you look at the players, the lineups, the amount of injuries, and if we do finish sixth with all of that and grind out results to finish sixth, it's not awful. It's just that I think Newcastle and Chelsea, who are below us, I do think have played better football. I think the football we play is poor, but maybe we have the quality to grind out sixth when you think of the injuries. And that's why I'm willing to, give Ten Hag time. But I would understand if INEOS sacked him, because it hasn't been good enough as well. Ten Hag has a brilliant plan, but no backups, and he can't do it without a plan. And I agree to an extent. He's not had the recruitment, he's not had the board around him, he's not had the environment around him to allow him to succeed. I believe that he has a plan, and I believe that with the right players and everybody fit, his plan can work, because I thought he was good last season. I thought he was good at Ajax, but I think, there's elements of his work this season and some tactical naiveties that do make me a little bit worried. Ten Hag did speak about his style of play and said when you don't have the players at the back and the patterns, when you don't have a left-footed players on the left side, you already have to make your adjustments. It changes your way of play, but also your possession. And when you have less possession, you also have more shots on your own goal. Ten Hag said the frustration at the style of play not working is not the right word, because I'm a realistic man. Last year when I came in, you make your adjustments, but at the end of the day, it's about winning games. From last year, we found a way to make a very successful team. So Ten Hag obviously lost the first two games of the season last year, adapted his way of playing. He wanted to play away in pre-season, it worked. Last year, lost to Brighton, lost to Brentford, brought in Casemiro, adapted. He said sometimes you want to play a certain way, but you have to adapt because of injury, because you don't have the player. He said frustration probably isn't the right word. You've got to be realistic. And Ten Hag is very much hinting, he wants to play a very different style of play to the way he's playing now. He wants, to be more possession-based. He wants to build out more from the back. And he's saying that to Gary Neville, you don't understand how much injuries have impacted that. I don't want to be playing the football I'm playing now. And I think that Ten Hag, while he's very positive in interviews, and some of the stuff Ten Hag comes out in interviews with, you're thinking, what is Eric talking about? I do think he's very positive in interviews because he's protecting the players, because they're a bit little softies that'll cry if you insult them. I actually think Ten Hag isn't happy with the amount of shots we're conceding, and it's just being over positive in interviews. I really do. I think that Ten Hag is aware that it's a mess. I really do, although sometimes it doesn't sound like that. And he did speak about his initial meetings with INEOS, how he's been getting on with INEOS to Gary Neville. And he says, now we've got to take things quickly because the summer is coming. It's a very important period where you go into a window. We want to make the next step in our squad. We want to make plans, but we also want to create an environment that avoids this year's injury problems. We know that Ten Hag and Jason Wilcox had a big conversation about the injuries ongoing at United, and that bringing in a fitness coach. Ten Hag was never allowed to bring in a fitness coach when he first got to United, which Ten Hag was frustrated about, and he's obviously been having a lot of conversations about that with INEOS. And INEOS are shocked by the lack of support Ten Hag's got in fitness coaches, the environment at United. And we know that INEOS apparently, reportedly, very willing to support Ten Hag and bring in a fitness coach. That's one of the first changes that they want to make at Manchester United going forward as well. And I think, Ten Hag had conversations with INEOS, and INEOS are very sympathetic with the injuries that he's had. INEOS want to change the environment so Ten Hag can succeed, but INEOS also want to bring in things like a fitness coach to help the environment at United. And Ten Hag spoke about injuries, 30 combinations in 47 games, and how it's impacted him. And I do think that Ten Hag said some really interesting stuff in his interview with Gary Neville. I can't blame Erik Ten Hag's answers. He plays it safe every response. At Man United, you're under the microscope. And that is a very good comment there from Alex. At the end of the day, whatever Ten Hag says is going to be interpreted one way or another by someone else. People will interpret it how they want to. Anything Ten Hag says, there's always going to be someone that disagrees with it. And when you're under the microscope at United, you just got to be positive. I think you've got to back yourself. You've got to just stick up for yourself. And I think you've got to be positive about our players, because they'll cry if you don't. You just have to, sort of approach it in a certain way. And I think Alex makes a good point there as well. Big up everybody in the chat. Please do hit the like button on the way out. Of course, subscribe down below to Alice Talks Football if you're new. I'm going to round up the live stream here because I've got a very busy evening ahead. But if any news comes out that's interesting, I will be back tonight with a video, maybe 10 p.m. if anything interesting comes out. If not, I'll be back live tomorrow. See you guys tomorrow. Thank you for watching. Bye.